Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
First off, I have no proof. The only thing I could have done was take a picture with my phone which would just appear like a pic of a random star, or make a video which would make the moving of it seem like it's from the shaking of my hands. However, some friends saw it too, so I wasn't imagining it. So on the 23rd of December this year, I think I saw a UFO. It was too far away and appeared like a dot of light in the sky, but it was no star as it was too bright, around 3 times as bright as all the other ones, and moved around all the time. But it also wasn't a plane. It didn't blink in different colors as planes usually do, and it hovered still for some time, then moved to the side, or up and down and back while staying at the general area. The dot also wasn't as blue as a star, but more a pale yellow. What struck me as odd is that it looked pretty much like the star depicted that guided the dudes to Jesus when he was born, like a bright star with 6 lines or rays coming out of its center. When you kept staring at it, the vision seemed weird, a bit like when you stared into a bright light and after it still see dots from the light you were blinded from, when while also at times seeming to emit some lightning, not those that strikes the ground or anything, but a bit like a Tesla coil having just random lightning around it. There were other planes which appeared to fly around that object. At least those planes changed directions and didn't seem to go anywhere and slowly flew closer to where it was. It was a bit outward of Hanover to the west, by the way, and I saw it from around 1830 to 1930. I watched for 10 minutes straight, but when it all stayed the same, I went back to do what I was doing and kept checking on it a few times until it was gone around an hour later.
So I was in Panama City from 86 to 90. Ultimately, I became, I guess you'd call it, a freelance logistic advisor for the military. I knew where things were and that had value. So I was helping this new to the area colonel. We got along well. I provided him with invaluable information that will help thousands. Whether it did, I don't really know. Anyway, one night he and I are about a block from the coastline after a long day of information sharing. I'm starting to get an idea of how big the scope of things are from what he is telling me. It's about 2:30 a.m. and this oval saucer shoots out of the water with lights along its equator and underside. I'm shocked by this comment. You guys must be serious. I've never seen any military craft like that. I look over to the colonel, who is completely dumbfounded. He states that he's glad I saw it too, and he was sure as shit the US didn't have anything of the sort. UFOs weren't as popular then, but I guess nothing was without the internet. About 10 years after that happened, he showed up on my doorstep and we laughed and speculated about what happened that night. He's convinced that it was a UFO. And he's the sort of man, if he told me the world was flat, I'd believe him. Anyway, thanks for listening to an old man's story.
I have a not-so-spooky paranormal story of a recent happening. First day of summer break. Heads off to go camping with my friends, with our families. About 15 families of at least 4 people during the first night. Skip ahead a while. Night before the day we have to leave. 7 families still haven't gone home. Decide to go night fishing. No one wants to join me. I walk about 1/3 of a mile to this nearby lake. I sit on a dock half asleep fishing for about 15 minutes. I notice the moon is fucking huge and orange tonight. From where I was sitting, the moon should like it was half an inch long. Tonight it looked 1.5 feet long. The moon was also very low to the ground. You could only see half of it from over the trees. About 20 minutes later, I get bored and head back. About halfway back to camp, I notice the moon is about 2 feet higher in the sky and only half as large. Think nothing of it. As I get closer to the camp, the moon gets higher and smaller. I also see some 5-inch tall wooden people that turn into sticks and you get close to them. I thought nothing was off about that. At one point I see the moon and the moon in the same peripheral and think nothing of it. Later that night, while back at camp, I saw a shooting star. The shooting star was in front of the clearly visible cloud layer that I failed to mention earlier. I think nothing of it and head to bed. The worst part was I had my 3DS in my pocket in video mode and didn't even think to take a video. I could have had 3D video of a UFO and aliens.
About 12 to 13 or so years ago, I remember my family and I noticed that our CRT TV started to flare up in static for some reason. I remember looking outside the window to see a large formation of birds in the sky constantly circling around the area, but this wasn't some natural flight pattern and it struck me as odd. Then, my sister noticed a large construction in the sky above our back garden. Unlike most UFO sightings, the object is distant and usually far away from the ground as to be obscured. This construct, however, wasn't the same. It was just hovering in the sky at a similar altitude to helicopters, albeit moving ever so slowly. I don't think I remember taking a picture. The structure of this construct was cuboidal and looked oddly mechanical, like it was made out of a mishmash of electronics. But it didn't look advanced or sleek, more like human technology developed around the late 80s/early 90s, with it being very clunky looking and angular. The weirdest part, and the part that has kept with me and my family the most, was how the entire structure would shift and move, as if sections of it were on some kind of hinge, forming shapes like what I can only describe as similar to Tetris pieces. It did eventually move away, the static on the TV came to a stop, the birds stopped circling in their weird formation. A friend who was in the military said it was probably some kind of old classified aircraft. I'm not convinced, and to this day, I still don't know what it was, nor do I remember any records of a UFO sighting around that time in my area. Whatever it was emitting some kind of electromagnetism to affect not only the TV, but probably the bird's navigational capabilities as well. Perhaps it was indeed some kind of military aircraft, or maybe it really was something extraterrestrial. I've not heard of other UFO sightings similar to this either, and I know people would have seen something this large.
Age 7. All is fine and out of nowhere, fire in the sky is broadcasted in afternoon TV. Shit fucked me up, and it fucked me even more when the biggest national news show made a report on the Travis Walton case. Mom puts her hand over my eyes so I can't see most of the report. It just makes everything worse. Scares fucking shit less of aliens until I'm about 12 to 14, when I start reading more about UFOs. Realize that the odds are minimum to have an encounter like that. Still have a lot of fun reading and studying about the phenomena. Fast forward to 2010, I'm 20 now. Ufology is still a hobby. Have been dating this small town girl for a few months. She's beautiful, very kind, an amazingly sweet person. Somehow, the alien talk shows up.
Yeah, I don't like to talk about this subject, Anon. I would rather not. Let's talk about something else.
Realize she's also scared, just like I was when I was younger. There's no need to be upset. The chances to have a close encounter are very, very unlikely. Awkward silence, followed by some water in her eyes and a fragile voice answering.
Yeah, that's speculation. It's just not enough to avoid them from coming at night.
Pokerface.x is currently running full speed on all my cores. Fast forward a year, it's 2011, and we talked about aliens a couple of times. She says that she is sometimes visited by humanoids that come in through her apartment window. They have big heads, big black eyes, and sleek yellow skin. There's also another kind that is taller and looks more human, but both look and feel evil, as if they don't mean any good. Pokerface.x is still running. I just don't believe it. She has a very powerful imagination, and these stories are certainly just dreams and fear of strangers. I don't know, I'm not a psychologist. Also, those yellow aliens don't really match up with anything I've heard before, so IDK. I just don't think about it a lot. She's a cutie and no woman is below a 4 out of 10 in crazy. She sleeps in my house often. We usually watch a movie, order some pizza, shower, have sex, some pillow talk and go to sleep. It's cozy and comfy, and all is right. We do this every now and then, about 2 or 3 weeks every month. Everything is cool. Then one fucking night, out of fucking nowhere, we both wake up, way past midnight. Blinding light coming through my window. Shitty noise annoying the fuck out of me. It's like that white noise that you hear when you turn on your TV, but louder. Pic related. It's a drawing I made a few years later. What the flying fuck.x overruns my systems, overclocking in process. My bed is just below the window. I jump out of bed, heart racing. GF does the same, through the other side of the bed. I spread the curtains and the blinding light enters the room even more. Can't really see anything, it's too bright. Use my hand in the wooden parts of the colonial-style window to shield some of the light and try to understand what's going on. Eyes adjust. There it is, hovering 2 or 3 feet above the ground. This strange, sideways egg-shaped object on the gate of the front house, below the light post and energy cables the post tethers. Glows white bright in the middle, and has a bluish-purple glow in the outer rim. It wasn't hovering still. It had a strange movement pattern, as if it was flickering. It seemed as if it was moving in all the axes, X, Y and Z, very very quickly. Felt like film grain, very erratic and unpredictable. My mind goes blank. I have absolutely no idea what to do, or how to react. I just stay there, cold sweating, looking at that. Never been so scared in my life. My mind feels like an empty, dark room. I can't move. Girlfriend touches me on the shoulder. Something is wrong with her face, I can't really tell what.
Close the curtains, let's go to sleep.
Wake up the next morning. It's a Sunday. I rushed out of bed. She gets out soon after, with a different look than usual. It's clear to me that something really happened. She avoids eye contact, and my mind is somewhat slower than usual, even for Sunday morning standards. I want to talk about this with her, but I'm also scared. And I know how much she hates to talk about this kind of stuff. I want to be a good man and protect her, and if I talk to her about last night's experience, I might make her feel uncomfortable and insecure whenever she comes around. I don't want to seed fear in her mind. Have to cope with this. Whatever. Fuck it. Maybe it was a bad dream, who knows? Yeah. It's strange that I have absolutely never dreamt about UFOs or aliens, absolutely never dreamt about my house either. There was also nothing physically strange with my dream. I usually dream with shifting colors, shifting lengths and a lot of people. I also don't think I could ever recall the beginning of a dream. And for some reason, this one begins and finishes in the exact same place I had slept the past night. Think it was real, but at the same time think it might be a new kind of dream. It's strange, I just doubt that I experienced that, and at the same time doubt that it was a dream. Fast forward a couple of years. It's 2013, and nothing like that ever happened again. I'm still dating the same girl. See this on the news. Looks just like the thing I saw. Really confused. I decided to talk with my girl about what happened. She says she actually remembers waking up one night, with a very bright light coming through the curtains. But she doesn't remember anything else after that. It's fucked up, and the worst thing ever is that I can't prove anything to myself.
Since I was 12, I've had dreams about aliens and UFOs. When I was 12, I woke up and noticed half of my bed was gone. I could have woken up weird. At the head of my bed there is a door that has never been there before. It shouldn't be there beside the bunk bed. Behind the closed door there is a light on. I don't want to open that door. I want to turn on the light. I get up and walk to the real door and turn on the light. There is no door across from me. Only the wall. I've had a dream where I wake up in my bed, and I look at the clock. The numbers are going haywire. For a while I would always wake up at 9:11 p.m. I've had a dream about two short big brown aliens wearing red capes with gold intricate designs on the collar in a hardware store. I had another dream where a UFO crashed into a train that was passing by. Later when I was 19, I had a dream where I was on my knees surrounded by a circle of tall brown aliens with the same capes. I can see myself panicking inside the circle. In the third-person view, I am going in circles, farther and farther away until I wake up. Recently I had a dream where myself and a group of people at a house were abducted by a group of UFOs wandering around Earth. I try to flip off a UFO that's slowly getting closer to the house. Eventually I stop and start waving. I notice an alien holding a machine gun. After I start waving, it starts drifting away. Later I can see the Earth outside a small window. I am shown the Gemini galaxy. It's very beautiful. No one else knows where they are. I try to explain but no one believes me. I'm just hoping some of this can be explained. They are just dreams after all.
Be 20, maybe 21. Driving at night, probably 9 p.m. Had finished work and was going to spend the weekend with my family. Long road going south to meet them at Uncle's beach house. Long, like 2 or 3 hours straight from city long. Just driving. And driving. Tunes and driving. Suddenly, flashing white lights along the right side of my car, passenger side, Aussie. Pretty bright, but not blinding. Kinda moving, like when multiple car headlights pass you one after the other. But I knew they weren't cars because there was no other lane. My immediate thought was that it was a train going the opposite direction in the dark. Then my car felt as though the whole thing was vibrating. Not a huge shudder, more like a phone when it's on vibrate. A little weirded out, thinking something was wrong with the car. Then, all at the same time, engine cuts out, music stops, vibrating subsides, and lights vanish. Roll the car to a stop on the side of the road. Eerily quiet, only the sound of my tires crunching over the gravel. Car won't restart, not even a sound from the engine when I turn the key. At this point, I didn't associate the lights with anything about the car. I was simply cursing at my car. I get out to look at the engine. Remember, I'm not good with cars. Just looks like robot spaghetti inside. Go to use my phone to call family. Dead. Won't turn on. Ended up having to walk half an hour back to a service station I'd passed earlier to use a payphone. My granddad and I went back to my car the next morning, but it was still dead. Phone was working now, though. But the thing that weirded me out the most when thinking about the lights and the order of events was that I noticed there were no train tracks. I call it a close encounter, but I don't believe I was abducted.
This story was told to me by my childhood best friend. It supposedly happened to her cousin I never met. So I have no proof of any of it and won't pretend I can believe it's true, but she always swore it was, so here's a story. Live in a shitty suburban area of massive farm desert that is Idaho. Friend's cousin, we'll call him Ned, lives out in the boonies. Has a nice spacious house with his parents, just in shitty as fuck dry nowhere. Ned has a second-story bedroom with a large window, patio, a balcony. Something where he likes to sit at night and read. One night sees lights and other bullshit, whatever. Watches for a while. All the lights in his house are off except his bedroom, so he somehow speculates that it's aliens and they must not see him. UFO, wow, cool, rad. Lands off in the distance. Dust blows up too much to make out any immediate detail. By the time the dust settles, all the lights are off. Some flashlights detected. Nopes out and barricades up his house for the night. Maybe his parents weren't home, or asleep, I don't know. Waits up for months, but never sees anything again. Never heard about it again.
Was born in Las Vegas and raised in Nevada until I was 18. When I was in middle school, my house was out in Bumfuck, nowhere north of Vegas, and the two major things near it were a hog farm and a bombing range. I believe in aliens because of personal experience. Often, I don't want to, and I try not to think about it, but I have experienced some weird shit, and not believing at this point would be not to believe my own senses and memory. Anyway, let's start by saying that this shit did not begin when I moved to that house. It's impossible to accurately recall events in your life before a certain age, but as far back as I can remember, I've only had a single phobia: gray aliens. I've always been simultaneously drawn to them and terrified of them and UFOs. The image of those eyes resonates with me on some level and just sends shivers up my spine, and although I try to avoid the thought of them now, broaching the topic gets my mind going crazy. You know how some dreams just stick with you, ones you've been having repeatedly since before you can even remember anything about your waking life? Dreams that you forget until you have them again and think, I've had this dream before? Well, that's where this shit starts for me. Back when I was very young, development in Vegas was far less than what it is now. The western part of the city that now comprises suburbs and shopping centers was just empty desert with streets, roadrunners, and a few tumbleweeds. One of the earliest dreams I can remember is of being in my grandma's car, with her driving, and heading south down Durango in that part of town when it was undeveloped. In the dream, my grandma is taking me south, way south, down that highway towards the desert. Well, I guess it was all desert, but towards the empty Mojave Highway between Vegas and LA. I don't know why we're going, and she's not talking, just driving like she's in a trance. We keep going until we're way the fuck out there, and as we do so, I notice that we're being followed. I see a silvery disc in the sky following at a distance, first in the rear view mirror, then in the side mirror, and point it out to her. She still says nothing, and after a while she pulls off to the side of the road and the dream ends. What gets me about that dream is that it's from before I actually knew that part of town was ever undeveloped. My grandparents never took me there when I was young. What would be the point? And by the time I started going to that part of town when I could drive, it was developed. I didn't find out that it had been all desert as recently as it was until I was in my teens, so there's no way that information could retroactively make its way into my dream. I've checked out pictures of what the area used to look like, and they scare the fuck out of me now. Anyway, and I'm trying really hard to remember all of this shit coherently and in chronological order. The earliest time I can remember having that dream was in 2nd grade. When I was in the 3rd grade and my dad remarried and moved, things got a bit more vivid. I recall first having the sensation of flying or floating while I was in bed, which honestly didn't bother me. It was actually rather pleasant on its own, and I looked forward to perhaps flying as I closed my eyes to sleep each night. I thought maybe it was part of dreaming or of falling asleep, and I had been having that sensation occasionally for ages. Well, I got a bit of perspective on that very quickly. I recall having another dream that same year that stuck with me, except that I only had it once. I'm going out towards the sliding door to my backyard late at night, for God knows what reason. I think it was to change the dog's water or something, but I might have just been going out back. Anyway, I step outside, and immediately I freeze up. The backyard is all lit up and there's fucking gray aliens waiting outside for me. All I want is to go back into the house and shut that fucking door, but I can't move. All I remember beyond that point is them taking me out of the doorway and fully into the backyard. First dream where I actually saw them, not the last. The next house we moved to was the aforementioned one up by the bombing range. This was about 5th or 6th grade for me. The years I spent up there fucked up my sleep patterns permanently. As far as the valley area goes, that place was beyond rural. Like I said, we were by a hog farm and not much else. That area is right in the shadow of Shadow Mountain, and just north of it I could see tons of empty desert stretching towards the base of it. Bumfuck, Nevada, home of firearms and dirt. Anyway, that house was 2 stories, except that the second story of the house didn't completely cover the first one. At the top of the stairs, we had an indoor balcony that you could see the dining room and the living room from, and that balcony formed a T with the hallway that my bedroom and my sister's bedrooms were on. Directly across from that balcony, on the second story, we had 3 very large windows overlooking the mountains just east of us. Those windows were fucking paranoia fuel for me. We saw plenty of strange aircraft as it was out there, stealth bombers, jets, black helicopters, miscellaneous lights traveling in formation and doing drills, but every night, if I watched from that balcony, I could see them fly in a V formation. I think it was some kind of drill, but I swear to God that those aircraft did not always fly like planes. They hovered and darted, or stayed in place for minutes at a time. At night, they just looked like lights, too, so that just made it more unnerving. It was there that I developed a habit of always watching the skies, and I've seen some weird shit as a result of my watching. Still, I would have chalked up all the weird shit to being near a military installation if it weren't for that which came to us personally.
Did your parents ever have the same experiences?
Yup, my dad anyway. I don't know my mom. We don't talk about it often, and he never spoke about it at all until I was older, but sometimes he'll just broach the topic if we're watching the night sky or alone together on a road trip. He's been seeing that kind of shit since he was a kid, and according to my uncle, used to insist that aliens were underground out in the desert. We've had one close encounter together. Anyway, that house. That's where I started getting those dreams constantly and experiencing the other shit. A buzzing noise coupled with a feeling of dread. The feeling of being watched constantly. Waking up where I didn't go to bed. And anger coupled with the urge to stay awake in my sister's rooms all night with a steak knife and protect her from the monsters. A fear of those 3 windows and the windows in our bedrooms, and of my closet for some reason. It started with me having a dread of my own window. My bed was right next to it, and after a while I rearranged my whole room so that my bed could be against a different wall. I developed a habit of sleeping sitting up with my back against the wall. I hated that window. When that didn't work, I would ask my dad to sleep with me. I used to lie and claim that I was afraid of burglars. I didn't want to seem crazy. What scared me was when I finally told the truth. If I said that I was afraid of burglars, I would get reassurance about how impossible it was for us to get broken into. When I said I was afraid of aliens, my dad just gave me a solemn look and told me that there was nothing we could do about such things. Not even a denial. I started developing fucked up habits after that. I used to roll myself into a sort of burrito with my blankets and tuck the bottom almost into a knot, sleeping on the end so that my weight sealed it shut. Don't know why or when I started doing that, but it was something I had a big compulsion to do. During that time, I had some vivid fucking dreams. One where I woke up paralyzed and floated through my wall to a waiting saucer. One where I woke up paralyzed to a tall gray looking down at me. One particularly frightening one where I fell asleep on my stomach, woke up paralyzed, and could feel my covers being removed from my back. It's at this point that I should point out that even though I call these dreams, I can't really tell if they are or aren't. First off, a lot of them begin with me waking up in bed paralyzed. Second, a lot of them just involve me being compelled to go someplace while awake and getting abducted, and have no unrealistic elements aside from the fucking aliens. I lucid dream a lot and reality check myself pretty often. I think I know when I'm dreaming. These aren't like that. They're just dreamlike memories of going into my backyard or something, and again, the setting and contents of the memories are totally ordinary. My house. The usual contents of my house, nothing strange or fantastic, and fucking aliens. Anyway, rambling. I developed the habit of staying up all night then and had a mental breakdown as a result. I would stand there on that balcony, just far enough from the door of my parents' bedroom that I didn't cast a shadow underneath it, and watch those windows all night, counting every minute until sunrise. The spot where I stood eventually developed telltale imprints of my feet. Sometimes, I'd hear that buzzing and dread what was coming. Sometimes, I'd fall asleep despite all my efforts. Most of the time, I'd just stand vigil for hours. That's where my insomnia comes from. The only nights I felt safe sleeping were ones where everybody else was up or the weather was particularly stormy. We did move eventually, and I was fucking glad to be out of there. Sometimes I feel like that shit's finally over, for years at a time, only to get a nice reminder that moving houses doesn't make a difference. One time in high school, I came downstairs at night to find my front door wide open. When I went to check it, I found both of my sisters standing outside and looking up. Asked them what they were doing, and they told me that they were watching the stars fly around. Creepy as fuck. And I do sometimes wake up feeling like I've been abducted. Happens no matter where I go.
Okay, I can tell you an experience I had once. I came home tired from work. I live just outside the village. A few years ago, my brother told me that when he was smoking outside at night, he heard very weird whispers behind him, like 10 people whispering to each other in an unknown language. Now that I am writing this, I actually start to cry because, well, I will go on. He told me this, and it freaked me out. So, I went to sleep. My bed is near the window, by the way. So I went to sleep, with nothing unusual. Then, I had a very weird nightmare. I was walking down the street, near our house, when suddenly a weird figure pulled me towards it. I cannot really describe how it looked, but I could not escape its pull. When it got me in its grip, it swung me around while stabbing me in my back. It hurted so fucking much. I never knew that you could feel pain in a nightmare. That night I learned you could. So he kept swinging me around and stabbing me just between the shoulder blades, and I could not do anything against it. The pain became unbearable and I woke up, completely drowned in sweat. Then suddenly, I hear the whispers, multiple whispers in an unknown language. It was so fucking creepy and I heard it right next to my head. I was shaken in fear and my back was still hurting. I had no idea what was happening. After a while it stopped and I peeked over my bed sheets, and I saw 2 shadow shapes of an alien gray head walking outside the window. They just stood there, in front of the window, behind the curtains, and I didn't dare to pull the curtains. I was literally paralyzed with fear and I just curled up in my bed sheets for the whole night, completely cramped up till I finally heard the birds whistling and it was morning. It was the scariest night I ever had. I slept over at my friend's house the next few weeks. The night went as usual, nothing weird happened. When I went to bed, I fell asleep normally. But then I had a nightmare.
Albuquerque, New Mexico, 4th of July, 2003. Me and a bunch of other kids from my high school are having a bonfire on the edge of town in the parking lot of a store that was closed down. The parking lot is near the airport but not much else, near I-25. Fireworks are fun, people are drinking, and going well. Around midnight it gets cloudy and the moon gets covered up as clouds drift in. Light drizzle, we have tents and shit so we still hang out. Fireworks are fucked from the rain. Eventually our bonfire fizzles out since from the rain. We have a few flashlights but it's really dark. Most people go off to their tents to do whatever, sleep, sex, who knows. Me, my best friend, and my GF are all out, just hanging in front of our tent. One flashlight between us. We turned it off and we're just talking. Weird whirring noise picks up. We assume it's just an airplane since we're close. Noise continues for a long time, like 20 minutes, and we start to get weirded out. We decide to go into the tent. Don't want to be outside for anything weird. GF can't find her jacket. I saw it by the fire, and said I'd go get it. She and my friend entered the tent. I went over to the bonfire spot to get her jacket. Looking around in the pitch black for it, can't find it. Like 3 minutes later I see it on the ground. How can I see it? It's pitch black. Realize everything is getting lighter. Look up in the sky to see if the sun's coming up or clouds are there. Green light pouring out from the edge of a cloud. A big green disc barely visible behind the cloud. Stunned. Suddenly the light shuts the fuck off. I panicked and ran back to the tent. GF and friend were relieved to see me, saying I've been gone ages. Tell them what I saw. No one believes me. Fuck.png.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Oh.